Hey everybody, I am making a video while I'm putting my makeup on. I am not using my professional mic. I don't have my backdrop. This is just something that I need to get out and it is time sensitive. And I have been super busy recently, so this is literally the only time I have to get it out. Why is this story time sensitive? It's complicated, but I'll tell you. I want to preface this by saying I don't know if I will ever publish this video. This video might just be for my records, but it has to be done. It has to be done today on June 11th of 2026, and there's a reason for that. I have never I'm so nervous to talk about this. I'm so fucking nervous to talk about this. I have never spoken to anyone about the story besides my husband, of course. Besides the story that I am about to share. And I don't even know if I'll share it. The reason it's time sensitive, today being June 11th, 2026, it's 3:20 p.m., is because tomorrow, June 12th, a movie comes out. Steven Spielberg, Disclosure Day, comes out June 12th, 2026. So I'm recording this the day before to make sure that I have spoken and told my story before the movie comes out. That's important to me because of a lot of experiences in my life and because I'm pretty sure that this movie is gonna be about what happened to me. I've seen the trailers, and the trailers are, like, really hush hush and simplified and bare bones because 'cause they're trying not to give too much away. But from what I've seen and from talking to other people or, like, hearing other people talk about it, I am pretty much 99% positive that this movie is going to be about what happened to me. Probably not completely, but it's going to tie up a lot of loose ends, and it's going to make sense of what happened to me. And so I wanna talk about what happened to me before the movie comes out so that there's proof. I will literally show you on my camera just because I feel like I should do that, that I am not bringing this story together from what happened. Okay, so today, you see there it is Thursday, the 11th of June, 3:22 PM, 2026, obviously. So, I have never told this story before. I am terrified to tell this story. I have kept this story completely to myself, besides, I think, a few rando people who looked at me like I was crazy, which is fine. I expected that, and I expect that from this if I ever share it. It's something I probably almost want to take to my grave because it's so weird. And that's saying a lot because I'm a really open book. I'm the person that's willing to talk about a lot of things that people don't talk about. Um, I think as a result of this movie, and I think it's already happening, a lot of people are coming forward with their experiences, and I think you're gonna figure out where I'm going with this pretty quick. So, it's weird. Buckle up. I'm just going to be completely dead honest. The person really to talk to about this, if anybody's ever curious, is my husband because he was on the phone with me when it happened. He talked to me before and after it happened, and he has watched my journey with it over the years. And he told me the other day when I was like, hey, I think this movie coming out is going to be about what I experienced. He was like, what people don't know is that you have not changed your story since it happened, since it was happening, and I was on the phone with you. So I just think that's important to know that my story about this has stayed completely the same. I don't know why I feel like I need to prove myself. I think it's just that fucking crazy. And I think that's why a lot of people don't talk about these things is because they're afraid that people will think they're insane. Literally, when it first happened, I like swore in that moment when it happened. I was like, I'm never going to tell anyone this because they will literally lock me up. And like, I don't want to lose my kid. That was literally my thought was like, I can't tell anyone this because if I do, they're going to like put me in an insane asylum and like take my child from me. That was my rationale for keeping quiet about this. So here I am. But now a lot of things have happened. A lot of things in the world have changed. A lot of people are coming forward. And now we have this movie coming out. And I want to say my story on June 11th before it comes out. And then I want to record how I feel after I see the film because I think the film is going to answer a lot of my questions. And I want to talk about it before and after, but I want it to be so clear that this is not a story that I derived from the film. This is something that happened to me independently that I have never talked to anyone about and I think is about to be majorly corroborated, if you will. What I'm about to speak about is the phenomenon. I am not talking in specifics about aliens. I am not talking about UFOs. I am not talking about UAPs. I am not talking about technology. I'm not talking about spirituality. I am talking about all of the above. And I feel like the best, most suited terminology for that is the phenomena because we don't understand it yet. And there's so many different facets. I will admit that this is a special interest area for me. I have autism, so I have deep dived probably harder than anyone I know on this topic. And the reason I have is because of this experience. Now, before this experience that I'm going to talk about, obviously I had a lot of interest in the spiritual world, the unseen, the esoteric, um, anything like that. Definitely was already an area of interest for me. So I was primed for that in terms of spirituality, consciousness, psychedelics, familiars, shapeshifter, you name it. I was already down that rabbit hole myself personally, but I had never deep dived into the phenomena as a thing the way that I have now, but I did start after this experience. Um, so yeah, I have had a journey since having this experience where the experience started as just something I didn't understand that happened to me. And then slowly I was able to unpack over time what happened to me. And I think anyone who's ever had any experience can understand that I didn't come out of the gate like 5 minutes after the experience and be like, this is what just happened. I had to put it together, piece it together, and uncover it through time, through reading books, listening to podcasts, asking questions of other people who had had similar experiences, bits of information that were brought to me seemingly by other places to be like, this is what happened. And it ties very much into my personal journey. So this wasn't just like a one off thing where I encountered something that was like random coincidental, like me and it were on the same street. This was something directed at me, which is why I've never put it in the category of being an experiencer or the phenomena. I've always put it in tried it on in these different boxes. Maybe it was spiritual, maybe it was technology, maybe it was mental. I don't know. I've put it in every box I can to try to make sense of it. But in the past, specifically year, I have read a lot of books and heard a lot of stories of other people who have had similar experiences and been like, oh my God, this is a consistent experience. However, this experience was directed at me and it was personal. And so that's why I've always kind of hesitated of sharing it as an experience of the phenomena because I think that makes sense. It just didn't, it felt more personal to me, more spiritual. To this day, this experience terrifies me. Even talking about it, I get really emotional because it was just one of the most intense experiences of my life. And I can remember it like it was yesterday. And it still just rattles me to my core. Not in a fear sense, in a sense of reverence. Okay. So this was 2016 or 2017. I don't know the exact year. My husband and I have been debating and arguing about it back and forth because we're not completely sure. Anyone who knows me pretty well knows that I have two periods of my life. I have before getting sick and I have after getting sick. I want to make it very clear that I do not think that my interaction with what I'm about to describe made me sick. I don't think that at all. I just think that it was part of that process of getting sick, but it's so close to it that it's weird. It's weird. I will explain it to you. My daughter was young, 2016. She was born in 2014, so she was either 2 or 3. We can't recall. I'd have to get down into my calendar and actually look at it. I could probably find out the exact date that it happened if I really dug. 2016 or 2017, middle of the day, kind of like this, probably between like noon, 2, 3, somewhere in the like early afternoon. I am at home with my daughter. My husband is at work. At this time in my life, I had been moving from being perfectly healthy as far as I knew, with issues I'd grown up with. I had health issues growing up and stuff, to transitioning into a space where my health was falling apart at the seams. The very infant stages of this. This was long before I was having serious issues. This was like stuff was just starting to really fall apart in my body and like get really bad. And I didn't fully understand it. And my symptoms were getting weird and just my body was falling apart. I had just moved out here to the Vale. If you don't know me, the Vale is an intentional community that I live in. It's like a very sacred patch of like woods and wilderness where a bunch of people live in intentional communities. It's a very sacred high frequency place, if that makes sense. That's something I can go into. It's a whole thing. This is Native American land. It's a whole thing. But that's significant. I had just moved here and I was in the infancy of starting to have a lot of health issues. My health was unraveling and my daughter was very young. That's the scene. Okay. I had some critical stuff that was coming to a turning point in my life, specifically with my health and things like that. And Ryan called me while he was at work. He would call me on his lunch break or on his breaks and check in. How you guys doing? How's the baby doing? What do you want to eat today? All that stuff. So I'm on the phone with him in my apartment. I lived in an apartment out here that was on the edge of a ridge in the middle of a forest. The most beautiful apartment that anyone could ever live with, these crazy blessings had just come into my life, like inexplicable. Like someone gave me a car and I got this dream apartment. Like just all this stuff happened really quickly. And I was put in this amazing scenario. After I was put in this amazing scenario, my health fell apart. That's a whole separate thing that I could literally write a book on. I'm in this apartment. My child's little. My health is falling apart, but I'm safe. I'm in this beautiful environment with all these blessings surrounding me. And I'm on the phone with Ryan, and the apartment had a lot of glass on the front, windows across the kitchenette, big front window, and the front door of the apartment had a window. And I'm looking out that window and I'm on the phone with him, and my baby's playing over here in her little play area. She's got all these toys. And I look out. It's such an intense thing that happened to me. And it's taken me a really long time to understand it. I look out, and you know when like you're underneath a light or you're underneath the sun and a shadow passes over the light and you can see like the silhouette of the thing? Like in a movie where the sun's shining down and like a big bird or like creature passes over it and it blocks the sun up for a second, right? So I see that happen. All the shadows like in the forest in front of me, they shift, they move as if something big is passing over. And I say to Ryan on the phone, I wish I had like a recording of this call. I say, holy bleep, holy shit, there's something big. Must be a big bird, right? And I'm like, whoa, like I stop what we're talking about. I have no idea what we're talking about, probably food or that day or what we had to do. And I was like, holy shit, because this shadow swoops in out my window. The largest owl, we'll get to that I have ever seen to this day. I've never seen an owl this large. Again, I just don't understand. And trust me, I've researched, I've gone to frickin' aviaries and raptor centers to try and I've talked to naturalists to be like, what did I see? That's a whole other story. Shadows shift, holy shit, looking out the window, and there are trees in front of the ridge. Like, here's my porch, and the trees are like right there, big line of trees. And right front and center in front of me, there is a tree with a branch that comes off, and the largest owl I have ever seen in my life lands on this branch in front of me. I was in shock. I'm used to nature. I grew up in nature. I grew up in the woods. I live here. Like, I'm not shocked by deer, owls, skunks. If I saw a bear, I'd probably be like, oh, cool, and try and pet it. Like, I'm not fazed like that. This was different. And Ryan was like being all casual on the phone. He's like, oh, cool, big bird, like, oh, we saw a hawk, we saw an owl, and I'm like, whoa, like something else is happening. Huge. I'm trying to think of a size. And when I get into the experience, you'll understand why the size is confusing for me, because it was dynamic. It was huge. It was the size of a young person, like a giant toddler. I don't know. It was huge. And I thought, and I said to Ryan on the phone, how is this thing not breaking the branch? Because I was trying to enumerate to him how big it was. I was like, it's a huge owl. This is huge. And he was like, oh, cool. And I was like, no, this is like, I don't know what I'm looking at. And I'm not thinking to pull out my camera or get off the phone or anything like that. And then I moved from that window to my front door, and this thing is locked on me. Here's the thing. Think about this. That owl, if it's just a regular owl, is just going about its business in the woods. Why did it land there and look through my window, which I don't even think you can see through the window from the outside, the way that works, at me. And I was saying that I was like, "It's looking right at me." Like, at this point, I'm still feeling kinda casual and funny and kinda just like, "Whoa." I'm like, "It's looking right at me." So I move with the phone on my ear, kids over there, from the window to the front door, and it tracks with me. I pass through a doorway to a different window section, and it tracks with me, and I'm like, "Ryan," I said, "Ryan, this thing is looking at me. I gotta go." And that's what I said to him, and he was like, "Oh, okay." I don't remember what he said. The best way I can describe what happened next is I'm in front of the doorway, which is that second window section. This thing has tracked with me intentionally through my apartment, which I don't understand how you do because of the reflection. After this experience, I would go outside and I'd look at the window and I'd be like, how is it looking at me? And I can explain that away and be like, oh, owls have really good eyesight and it saw my movement or it heard my voice or vibrations. Because we'd have that sometimes a deer could hear you from outside and stuff like that. So again, I'm explaining all this stuff away, but it's weird enough that I'm like, what is happening? I will never forget this moment. And it's where I get emotional because so I described this to Ryan. I said, it's looking at me. I have to go. And I remember, and it's like, when you get in a car wreck and it's like right before you impact or you have an emergency or something. And if you've experienced this, you know what I'm talking about. Time slows down and you see everything in like slow motion, like fine detail. It's almost like it's in like HDR and it's like really slow. That's what happened. As soon as I said those words, I remember pulling the phone away from my face and hearing, like, when you pull a phone away and the voice gets quieter and him saying, "Oh, okay." And that's what I hear as I'm pulling the phone out. Everything starts to slow down. My awareness of my child over here who's playing, she's watching like SpongeBob and playing with her toys, completely fades away. My awareness of my apartment, my home completely fades away. My awareness of Ryan on the phone completely fades away. I did not hang up the phone. He must have hung up. I don't know. And everything got really slow and weird. And I opened the front door. Now, typically, when one sees a giant critter, especially one with like huge fucking claws like that, pardon my French, you don't go towards it. But I did. I can't even explain it. I was like, I have to go talk to it, was kind of what I said to Ryan. Was like, it's looking at me, like it needs to speak with me. I just knew that in my mind. It wasn't even like a mind to mind, like, hey, come out here. It was like a physical compulsion. I open my door in slow motion. My phone is in my hand down here. And I open the door like this. And I feel physically pulled from my center out into the doorway. I'm in the doorway and this thing is lined up with my door like this and lined up with my face like this in the most bizarre way. I'm not worrying what's going to happen. Maybe it's going to fly away. I'm not thinking about any of that. I'm not saying I'm paralyzed, but I am locked. I love how I stopped doing my makeup. I am locked in this experience in a way that I can't manipulate or control or alter. Once that door opened and we were lined up like this, and it locked me into place with it. I have never experienced, listen, y'all, disclaimer. I have done a lot of DRUGSs. I have done a lot of psychedelics. I've done a lot of meditation. I've done all that crazy woo-woo stuff. I have never had this experience ever in my life. Never again and never before. This thing physically locks my body in. I have a momentary thought about my kiddo in the corner, and I was just like, she's fine. It was like, she's fine. Don't worry about it. I'm going to do my best to describe what happened to me. I'm lined up in my doorway. Owl locks onto me. I'm physically locked into this interaction. I take I don't know, my phone's in my hand. I take a step into my door frame and one step outside. So it was like 3 steps, like before when I opened the door, into the door frame, and right outside the door. So I'm outside my apartment now on my patio, locked in with this owl. For all intents and purposes, to me, what I'm seeing visually in front of my eyes is an owl that is the size of like a grown man's torso. Huge. And I have multiple images of elements of the owl, but it looks like an owl that's like mixed up. I know owls. I grew up with great horned owls in the property where I grew up, barred owls, all that stuff. I'm not, and I'm like, what kind of owl is this? Like, I'm confused. It looked like a mix, like a conglomerate of owls, if that makes sense. Like someone mashed some of them up. And I was like, this must be really old or just really big, or maybe a type of owl, because I'm new to living out here deeper in the woods, maybe that I don't know about. I'm not thinking any of that at that moment, obviously. What proceeds to happen next is I'm staring at this owl and I'm kind of telling myself, you know, when you interact with an animal or maybe something cool in nature and you're like, just have the experience, like just experience the experience. I'm like, I'm just going to be present for this because this is weird. How do I put this into words? This is the part I'm scared to say. I'm just going to do it because it's real and it happened to me and it changed my life. Okay. If you choose not to talk to me after this or you think I'm a kook, that's fine with me. It happened. I don't know if Ryan's on the phone at this point. He's probably hung up. I was just like, I gotta go. Okay. It's a good thing I didn't put my mascara on, right? Okay, here goes. I'm probably 20 feet away from the owl, from my platform of my porch to the tree that it's sitting on. I could take you to that porch right now and show you the tree that it was sitting on. And I've gone back there and stood there many times because I've just been like, what the frick? The owl's body is where it is. Our faces are locked parallel, like so. I feel physically locked into the experience. Like, I'm like, oh my God, something's happening. Everything in the woods around it goes quiet. And if you live in the woods or you've ever lived in the woods, that shit's loud. There's always bugs going off and things crashing and birds chirping. Silence. Complete darkness, not physically, internally, closes in till it is his, I know it's a he, I just know it's a he, his face and my face. I did not realize I would be this scared to share this. It just feels like such a sacred experience that I still don't understand. And I'm so scared to be judged about sharing it. Okay. Okay. His face, okay. My eye shape is locked into his eye shape. My face is locked into his face. It went from like larger to smaller. Like it was like our environment, my body, this, and it locks down to face and then to eyes. The eyes of this creature is to this day the most terrifying thing I've ever seen. And not in a like, I'm scared it's going to hurt me. Fear, scary in terms of reverence and greatness. The deepest knowing that I've ever been exposed to, and the only time I've ever felt that way, and this is important later, is when I saw the cover of Whitley Streibers' book, Communion. And if you're into this stuff at all, you know what I'm talking about. And that was the only other time I have seen it in owls, because like I said, I've gone to aviators and raptor centers and bird rescues to like interact with birds to see if I'm finding the bird so that I can like to make sense of it, to be like, oh, there it is. That's the bird. I just got wigged out. And I have yet to find it. I have found it on the cover of Communion by Whitley Strieber. And that tells you a lot if you know anything about this. I lock eyes with the eyes of this owl that at this time are an owl. An actual owl as you would see in nature, kind of like a barred owl, dark black. The eyes and face zoom in right on my face. They move from 20 feet away in the tree to right here on my nose, face to face, instantaneously. I'm locked. My awareness of my apartment, the state I live in, my name, anything completely goes away. There is nothing else that exists. My child, who's still in the apartment with the open door, by the way, and a like cliff ridge that she could walk off of. It all goes away because nothing else matters, and I'm completely locked in an experience where that face of that owl came off of it and fused to the front of my face, as if a person is nose to nose with you. The largest, huge, black, all-knowing, terrifying eyes I've ever seen in my life, and I have searched high and low to find what I saw and what happened to me, and I have yet to find it. But other people have experienced this too. I'm not the only one. It fuses and comes towards me like that and begins to communicate with me mind to mind. I cannot believe I'm saying that out loud. I'm not talking about an emotional experience with a squirrel, or like you really feel like you connected with that deer, or you had a spiritual experience with a horse. This is something else. I'm in this face-to-face communication, mind-to-mind communication with this owl that has just zoomed towards me, instantaneously moved from 20 feet away from in the tree to in my face. And I'm not breathing. I'm nothing. I am locked, like in a trance was the word that was coming to mind during it, because I was like, time was going slow enough that I was like, what's happening? Why am I locked like this? All of that goes away and it begins to change. Its face comes forward with the eyes right on my eyes, and its eyes change. They go from solid black to blue galaxy. I don't know how to describe that. Solid black, giant communion owl eyes, and they turn into this deep blue, and you can see, I'm not making this up, the depths of the universe in its eyes. There's eternal depth behind them. Like if you shine a flashlight like sideways in an eye, you can see the glass of the eyes, and inside it is galaxies, star systems, blue. I have a photo of a similar owl. I think his name is Zeus online that I found, and he's going blind and his eyes look just like that. And they're filled with swirling constellations and blueness. So the eyes go from black to that swirling blue constellation. And they just turn into these magical, crazy, swirling things. I know that sounds insane to say with human words, but it's what I experienced. While this is happening, it starts to speak to me mind to mind. And it says, do not be afraid. I wouldn't even have a choice to be afraid because my awareness was so freaking gone. It says, do not be afraid, while I'm locked in it with this. And it's kind of like flashing between the owl and in my face like that. Like it would like, you know, when like a video like glitches, like it's like, zzz, and it's like going between in my face and the owl in the tree. The owl, whatever, that's all I know what to call it. And it proceeds to say, do not be afraid. You are about to enter the darkest time, the darkest night of your soul, the worst time. Now, if anyone's experienced mind-to-mind communication, it doesn't come in words. It comes in core meaning. So it's like, here's the message. And then I'm re-saying it with my words. Do not be afraid. You are about to enter the darkest time of your life, your hardest time of life, and your greatest suffering. You will suffer more than you have ever suffered in your life. And it will almost kill you. It will almost be your end and your demise. But I will be with you. I forgot to mention that this happened on a Thursday, which is crazy because I'm telling the story on a Thursday at pretty much the exact same time of day. 2016, 2017, I can find out the exact year on a Thursday, and it matters that it was a Thursday. I don't know if I'm going to tell that part of the story where I descend into illness rapidly after this experience. And he says, do not be afraid, steady yourself. And he's speaking in like old language, okay? So he's not speaking the way I'm speaking with a Midwestern accent. Don't be afraid, some bad stuff's gonna happen. He's speaking in like an old ancient tone, almost like a biblical, And he says, do not be afraid, for you are about to experience the darkest night of the soul, and much suffering will come to you. And, you will almost die, but I will be with you. And I ran cold. Because I understood what he was telling me. And he was saying, something is coming for you. And it will be the worst thing you will ever go through. And it will be horrible. And I'm doing such a crap job at translating with my words the meaning that he implanted into me. I feel like with words, I could say it a lot of different ways to make the point that he made to me. But he described a scenario of this up and down journey where I would suffer and my body would fall apart and I would struggle. And he showed it to me and closed with, but I will be with you. His words were so weird. Like I could write the actual words, the ones I could write, and it sounds weird. He would say, I will be among you, which is like, what does that mean? So I'm translating, but this is the message he gives me. And I'm filled with terror. And part of me is even filled with anger because I'm rejecting the message as it's coming to me. I'm like, no. And so frustration and terror and fear. And then we just sat there locked in this like weird, sad, peaceful, locked state. And he's going between his owl form and in my face with these eyes. And I'm just studying these eyes and I'm locked. I haven't blinked. I haven't moved. I'm in the doorway of my house like this, like hands out. And I know that because when I came to, when it was over, I was in that position. It felt like forever. It felt like so long. There was so much time distortion. It felt so fast, but so long. I know from looking at my phone that roughly the whole experience start to finish, like talking to Ryan when he called and getting off the phone and having this experience was around 30 minutes in Earth time. That's not the time that elapsed for me. And he showed me what would happen to him. And I studied his eyes and looked, and I was just locked in absolute awe of this creature I was having this bizarre interaction with, and this download or message or omen or warning or I don't know. And then at one point he had snapped back into the owl form and he's sitting on the branch. And then I settled back like into my body and he was in his body. And then I felt the experience was more like I'm just looking at an owl. So that's how it started, of me being like, whoa, what is this insane creature that I'm looking at? And then it expanded into the experience I just described, poorly described, which I'm holding back a little bit because it's hard to say in like English human words what happened, but I think I'm painting the picture. And then it returned to an experience of like, whoa, what am I looking at? So it was kind of this like chiastic like structure of an experience. And that is the part that felt so long, was me standing there after the message was delivered and still looking at the owl in this way. And then I felt it let me go. And I heard in my mind, I don't know if it's me commenting or him telling me that, he's letting you, it's letting you go. It's letting you go. And when it was like, it's letting you go, my feeling came back into my body and the owl flies off. And the ridge is like a long ridge outside of my porch, and it had come in from this side, landed in front of my front door where I was standing, and then left out that way and disappeared, just like any owl would. And I come back into my body and I'm standing there like this with my hands out in just the weirdest fucking position right outside my door. And reality, when you're like really asleep or you go into a deep meditation and like you feel reality come back in your body and you're like, whoa. And I feel how it is outside. The noise comes back online in the woods around me, which is crazy. And the first thing I think is the phone. And I looked down in my hand, I had my phone in my hand, and I thought I was on the phone with Ryan. And I looked down and he had hung up, because in my mind, it just all happened so fast that I thought he must still be on the phone. That was my first thought when I came to, was like, oh no, I just like took the phone away from my face. And I've asked him, he said that I just was like, I gotta go. Click. I don't recall hanging up the phone. But that was my first thought, is, oh, he's still on the phone. Like, that's how, if that makes sense, I was already like halfway out of it. And that was my concern, was that I had left him just sitting on the phone. So I look at the phone, and then I looked at my other hand, and then I felt like the humidity and heat outside. And I turned around and I realized my front door's open. And then I realized that my daughter's inside, who's like 2 or 3, I forget, playing. And I was like, oh, I left the door open. Like that. Then that shock hit me. And I came back inside and I checked on her. She was still playing. She was in the same exact spot. And I called Ryan back and was like, I just had the craziest experience. And I didn't want to say what it was, and he can corroborate this. At the time, I was like, I don't really know what just happened. That was really weird. I'm going to have to give that some thought. Like, I literally was just like, I remember saying, like, in short, I saw a really crazy owl. But I was like, but I'm going to have to process. That was weird. Now, over the years, I've kind of confessed more to him about what actually happened in that experience, because I even had a lot of fear for many years. If I told him the truth about what happened, that he would think I was crazy. When I finally told him, I think it was several years later, and was like, hey, here's what really happened, because I had kind of eked it out a little bit and given hints of like, that was weird, or I had explained that I was given a message and things like that. But I had never said, here's exactly what happened, like play by play, like I just said, which it sounds so simple, but it's not simple to me. It's huge in me. It took me many years to actually even say that out loud to Ryan, but he kind of knew that something else had happened because of how much it affected me. I'll need to make another video about what occurred in my life after that, but suffice it to say, that experience was on a Thursday, and I was in and out of the hospital. That happened on Thursday. I saw my doctor on that Friday before the weekend, because I was trying to get in for the health issues I was dealing with. And across that weekend was the sickest I had ever been in my life. And I spent almost the next decade like in and out of hospitals, getting diagnosed with a disability, all kinds of illnesses from that moment. That owl came and told me that message the day before all of that stuff hit me like a brick wall, and my life changed forever. Most people that know me now, that are like in my social circles and on my social media, they don't know me during that time, because I was closed off in the woods being sick AF. I've only reemerged into life now that I've been more well and more on my feet and more healed. And I'm even better now than ever. And all throughout my experience of illness, and I'll need to do a follow-up video on this, I have communicated with that owl or that creature. And I have called out to him, because he said, I will be among you. And I have said in anger and desperation and rock bottom so many times, where are you? You said you would be with me. And I've thought back on the message that he gave me. And when I got sick, I knew that what was happening to me was what the owl would say would happen. And I was terrified. It did not bring me comfort. But that's a whole other video. The point of telling the story is to say out loud what happened to me, that I experienced something that I now have a new understanding of. The understanding that I have now is that I was visited by the phenomena. I was visited by something very ancient that was coming to me for a reason, that knew where I would be and how to get me to listen, that had a mind-to-mind communication with me through some sort of shape-shifting entity. I didn't just have a spiritual experience with an owl or with a critter. I had an experience with an intelligence that wanted to warn me what was going to happen. And with each passing year of that laying out, I had a different understanding of it with each passing year, to now arriving to a place where I'm well again, and I can look back on that experience with what I know about the phenomenon and I can say definitively, this is what happened to me. Whether people think I'm insane or not. Because it's the truth. And one of the biggest turning points this year was finding out from people like Chris Bledsoe and Whitley Streibers and other experiencers that have reported to them is that I'm not the only person who's been visited by that owl particularly. And that entity has come in other forms as well. Whether that's a classic extraterrestrial or a shape-shifting creature, that's a whole other story for another day. But that's what happened to me, and I'm telling that story on June 11th before I go watch this movie, because I bet you the things in this movie will make what happened to me make a lot more sense. And if anyone's curious and has questions, I can go into more detail about my experience. I'm just giving a really cursory, straightforward version here that's real clean cut, just to get it documented. So now it's out. There you go.